A lot of IT guys and administrators had a very busy Friday today. Why was that? Well, it was because of Crowdstrike and Microsoft. Let's go ahead and dive deep on this topic. I made a video earlier today kind of going over a brief summary of what exactly these concepts were. Unfortunately, this is a subject that is going to take several minutes. So I hope you've got a couple minutes to sit around and listen to me yap. Initially, when I heard the news about this, I thought this was going to be some kind of new hack or compromise that was rolling out to millions of devices. Unfortunately, this isn't a hack. This is sheer human incompetence. Honestly, I feel like the guys at Crowdstrike were wishing they had gotten hacked instead. This is just sheer incompetence. So let's talk about what happened, what went wrong, and the consequences of it. Starting with what happened, Crowdstrike pushed out a definition or configuration update out to millions of devices, apparently without testing or without thorough testing. And this configuration or definition update is now causing blue screens of death on millions of Windows laptops, servers, and cloud compute instances. At first, people thought it was a bad Microsoft update, but after investigation, the issue was isolated to this piece of software. Crowdstrike works by loading Windows kernel modules to interrupt syscalls on your system. Basically, it's tied deep into your Windows operating system and uses that deeply tied connection in order to monitor the different programs on your system and alert you when they're causing issues. Unfortunately, their new update was obviously untested when they pushed it out. Because Crowdstrike is tied so deeply into the Windows kernel when it's installed, it messing up causes blue screens of death. This wouldn't really be a problem if it affected just one computer. However, when you scale things up, a moderate problem becomes a very big one very quickly. This is an issue that would have been solved with proper testing of your update before pushing it out. I wonder what happened to Crowdstrike's test engineers. Let's find out. Coincidentally, about 1 year and 3 months ago, Crowdstrike laid off a majority of its testing team. Who would have thought getting rid of your test engineers would cause problems with your software? Except anybody. Anybody would have guessed getting rid of your test engineers would cause issues. With a system this complicated and deeply integrated into Windows, you're gonna need thorough testing. I imagine the conversation to cut the testing staff over at Crowdstrike went something like this. Hey Dave, I just came up with a great idea. Shoot your shot, Phil. Alright Dave, you know how we have dozens of test engineers that just sit around on their ass not doing anything all day? Yeah, Phil. What if we just let all of them go? I mean, who needs to test software anyway? You know what, Phil? That's a good idea. That's a great idea. And no doubt it was a good idea to save money for at least 3 or 4 quarters. Now, a year and 3 months later, I wonder if the people who made that decision are regretting it. This isn't just a failure of bad software being pushed out through an update. This is a failure that had to have happened at multiple levels in Crowdstrike. The first level being the intern they're paying $2 an hour to write the code, writing the code. The second failure being the senior engineer whose job it should have been to overview the intern's code, just pushing it through. No doubt they're burnt out and exhausted and are just like, fuck it, it's good. Thirdly, this is a failure of the testing team. No doubt there's a guy named Bob running tests and he is overworked, underpaid, and highly stressed. Thankfully, there's a fix for this. Unfortunately, if you're in an organization with, I'd say, more than 5 computers, it's going to be a giant pain in the ass to actually get resolved. The reason for this is because to actually fix this, you have to boot into recovery mode and either update Crowdstrike or downgrade it from the previous version or remove the affected sys file so that the Windows kernel doesn't actually activate and load Crowdstrike. Most users don't have enough tech literacy to boot their computers into recovery mode. What that means is you're probably going to need to send an IT admin on site and have them boot those computers into recovery mode. I've been in offices where users in an office might be up to 30 people. So that means that's 30 computers. People that are affected are going to have to boot into recovery mode, upgrade Crowdstrike, or downgrade it, or remove the sys file. That is a time-intensive process. About 30 minutes, I'd say, per computer. Now, scale that up. To organizations with hundreds or even thousands of computers. You're going to have a lot of overworked, overstressed IT staff. And that's just desktops and laptops. It doesn't even consider servers, where you're probably going to have to boot into the hypervisor console and then boot the virtual machines for your servers into recovery mode to run the fix. And it definitely doesn't consider cloud services, where getting stuff into recovery mode is even more difficult. A lot of times administrators are going to have to spin up another virtual machine and then mount the boot drive for the damaged system on that new virtual machine. Imagine doing that for dozens of servers. I've worked for organizations that might have 24 servers. So that's 24 times just for the servers. And then you have to count the actual users at your organization as well. Basically, if I was an IT administrator with any sort of influence and power inside of my organization,